What is up, YouTube? I took apart the front end that I reassembled yesterday because we still have a lot of work to do. I got a ton of stuff to do on the internals of the motor, but as you can see, this is a motorcycle lift. Bikes are supposed to go this way, not this way. Well, the lighting on this side sucks, for one. I think that kind of shows up. It actually looks better in the phone than it does in real life. I need some light down here when I set up the timing stuff. I think what I'm going to do, because I'm running a stock rear swing arm setup, I don't have any custom fab to do on the swing arm and or the brake stuff. Eventually I'll get around to putting more lights up, but that costs money and I don't really have money to spend because all of my money goes into stupid bikes like this. So what we are going to do instead is finalize this front end. So here's the shaved trees, the lowers. I also realized I made a gigantic mistake by taking on these exact fork tubes because these are dimpled in the back. There's nothing I can do about that. I can't shave off enough material to compensate for that. I have a way nicer set at the shop. Single caliper, one tab. So everything that I shaved off on these forks, it had the one tab that I needed. Fender mounts are gone, reflector mounts are gone. Would have been exactly the same if I used the other front end and saved me a ton of time in prep and grinding and smoothing things out and coating and pretty much everything. But the upside is this is the stocker of the two bikes. Not at all stock, not at all factory anymore. But given the two Sportsters that I have right now, I got this one and then I got the basket case one. The other bike is actually a rigid chopper frame. So the 4/0 tubes, these guys, I think will look much better on a chopper than on this. So again, whatever mock-ups I do, it's still suspended. The swing arm's still kicked down. I don't really know exactly what I'm looking at until I get it actually sitting on the ground for the first time. So I think what I'm going to do instead today, I really want to get jamming on the motor and do the oil pump and the breather gear and get the oil pump timed because that's an important part of these older ones. Cylinders are just resting on there. All sorts of internals still. Still got to put the other crank seal in. If you have any comments or concerns from the last video, I think it just posted today, if I remember correctly, on the crank install, let me know if it's absolutely not going to work. Because in the back of my head, I am thinking, I know there were a couple issues with the way I chose to do that. I know the race was seated, I know everything else was good, and I know I pulled the crank in and compress the bearing because the bearing is locked out on the edge of the outer C-clip. There's two C-clips on the inside of this motor. We can address that in another video. Leave me a comment below. We'll go back to that video. Let me know there, or let me know here. If I'm an idiot and have no idea what I'm doing and that's going to blow up, please tell me now before I go to start this and figure out what happens. Anywho, back to this bike. What we are going to focus on tonight, I think I'm going to rebuild the forks. They're pretty much there already. Everything's painted, everything's coated, or sorry, not painted, but everything's powder coated. Everything's good to go. I have a brand new box of seals, brand new box of springs, and I just got the upper fork caps in the mail, so we're going to be getting rid of these gigantic 1-inch risers and clean all of this up. So let me turn you guys around. We'll take this front end off. Okay, front end. This is roughly mocked up right now. Fork tubes are still free. I don't have any of the pinch bolts in holding anything in place. So, in theory, this should have come apart super, super fast by hand. And this is the boring part because on the fork tubes, I bought new washers for this. I really didn't need them. I will need them for the second front end. So I splurged a little bit on parts, but I'm doing two Sportsters right now. So whatever I know for a fact I don't have, I've just been ordering so that next bike will go together a little bit quicker. If I have all the parts sitting on the shelf, I don't have to spend hours trying to research which parts fit what and figure out what's going to go where or which parts I want to use. The cool thing about these old Harleys is there is a good amount of parts interchange. Not in the sense of you can use... It's not like I can go out and take a brand new Sportster and swap over parts with the old ones. I understand there's a difference there. But the acceptable amount of parts interchange, sorry, just making sure I took that back wheel off. Otherwise, this thing will go tipping off the lift, and that'll make a great video for you and a horrible, horrible time for me. So, with the parts interchangeability, if you will, I don't know what's bolted in, what's loose here. There we go. Let's pull this top one off now. Parts interchangeability. You can kind of mix and match them. Even the differences between all of these parts, there's still enough similarities where I can get by using new and old parts kind of together. So, there's the triple tree. Stay. Technically, this can stay up here. So we'll just put the one nut on here. That'll hold that in place-ish. I did keep the fork locks when I shaved these. So we're good to go there. Forks are apart. Now, let's bring you guys a little bit closer on the bright side of the garage, and we will take a look at what it takes to rebuild these. We've been playing on forks for quite a while now. Let me get this seat and shock out of the way. Otherwise, I'll trip over them. You guys are already still in my way too, but that's fine. So we have the lower bolt. There's a crush washer on here. I don't know how good the kit that I have for this is, but that's what holds. That lower bolt pinches into the lower slider. Inside of the fork tube, we have one of these pieces, little top hat looking deal. Bolt threads through the bottom of the fork lower, right here, up through into the bottom of this, which actually the bolt itself threads into the lower slider itself. So there is pretty much your forks. The only thing I don't have in here right now is the upper spring, which looks like that. And the dampener, might as well do a full disassembly on this. I just kind of did a rough mock-up video of this yesterday, but that's your slider. You got a couple of O-rings on here. These are the old ones. We're still going to reuse them. They drop in from the taper side of the fork that goes up into the triple tree. So that will drop down like that. Your spring will go over the top. Once you get it down to the lower side, you kind of got to shimmy them a little bit to get this to line up with the lower, like that. Then the slider section comes through. So this will slide up and down in the bore, and the upper nut keeps tension on the spring. If you go to a 4 over or a 6 over or whatever the over length is, you need to put a spacer if you're going to run stock springs, because the longer your forks are, well, that spring doesn't move. You do not want this spring bottoming out onto the top. You want a little bit of preload on there, so you're going to cut a piece of either steel or aluminum or PVC to insert in there, which will basically keep a constant bit of preload on the forks. So let's start with this one. We got the slider, the lower. This can go over here for now. We got our slider, the fork lag, fork lower, the slider here, the damper with O-rings. We're just going to reuse everything for now and only focus on the sealing components of this build. So let's see what V-Twin sent us in our fork seal rebuild kit. Wonderful packaging. Another little mini V-Twin box. It's like twofer. The kid that works for me at the shop sells a bunch of watches, and those small boxes are quite valuable to him. Ooh, this is a good kit. Comes with the upper and lower snap rings. I know I got a couple videos of shaving these fork lowers and all of the other fun stuff. You got new washers. All right. Fancy V-Twin box. This will be a nut and bolt hardware box at some point. But snap rings, new bolts for the bottom, O-rings for the... what do we got here? One, two. Two O-rings. So these might actually go on the sliders. I gotta double check when I pull the other one apart. Let's look at that real quick. I just dropped the spring, but that's okay. All right, so that one O-ring. No, that's fine. Sorry. I'm trying to figure this out. There was a couple variances on these. There was like, I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was like Kayaba, some Japanese name I don't remember, and Showa. So in the same rough era of forks, they did have two different styles, and some of the internal parts are different based on what the manufacturer ones were. I'm going to put a little pressure on the top of this while I wiggle this lower rod through. Little movie magic, drops right in. So there's your forks. Let me open up some of these packages and we will be back. Putting you on this side because you're a little less in my way. So here is the dealio. We need a fork seal. We need some washers up here. So they send us the washers, which is good. I'll make sure these are the proper fork seals. These ones are the steel ones with the rubber on the top and the bottom. These are not the right ones, so that's awesome. Excellent start thus far. Well, that's going to put a damper on things, huh? Right there. Slider forks for Kayaba. That's not the ones I need. I need the Showas. These are Showa forks. These are not. Awesome! I think I have another set of fork seals laying around here. Let me dig around a little bit. I'll be right back. Well, that was my mess up. I ordered the wrong seal kit, so these will not help me. They might on the other set of lowers I have, because I have several of those. So these will go in my gasket bin of miscellaneous oddball stuff that I order that I will probably use at some other point in time, which means we need to figure out the next thing to move on to, which I think is going to actually be the oil pump now that the motor's in the frame. Well, I lied to you guys once again. We are not doing the oil pump tonight. Instead, several reasons. One, I've been grinding metal all day, so I'm covered in metal shavings. I don't need those going into a brand new motor. Two, I got all the parts for that wheel. So like I said, that wheel has brand new bearings, decent old used tire, but I need to turn the axle around, one. Two, it's a mini drum. It's fully loaded, everything is working except for the actual brakes on that. I have all that now, so let me pull that over here and we will patch up the rest of that wheel. Let me preface part 2 of this video by saying, normally I like working on wheels with the tires off. Not that big of a deal. There is no shortage of work or things that need to get done, but I got this resting on the edge of the table with the axle in. The axle for sure has to turn around. So I am actually going to pull that right now. And by pull, I mean let it drop to the floor. I recut a new spacer for this. These are all pounded in. Everything spins and works proper. The only issue I had on this wheel, and again, it's a mini drum. This is not going to be the main brake by any means. I'm going to be using the drum for that, but having one extra little stopping thing isn't the worst idea in the world. Sitting on a hill at a red light, whatever it may be, then I can at least hold the bike stationary. I don't think this is going to stop, but I think it will hold, provided the clutch is adjusted proper. So, like I said, issue I had on these was the inner hub. The shoes are okay, they're a little crusty. I'll probably scuff this real quick with some sandpaper. On the hub itself, but take a look at these shoes. Where's the pad material? Not there. So this is what we're going to fix tonight. We are way off kilter from stock Harley stuff, so this is all kind of a diving into the deep end, diving off the deep end, whatever it may be. Here's what we're dealing with. This is your brake stay. I'm going to pull this bolt right now. I've never done any of this before, so bear with me here. But I've done enough drum brakes, especially on bike stuff. Here's your pivot point. Here's your brake arm. So this will pivot out, in and out. Needs tons of grease. This is super notchy, which will open up and expand the pads outward, which will put pressure onto your shoe and grab. So looks like I need a screwdriver through here. We'll pop out this bolt, 9/16 looks like. Don't know if this actually has to come out yet, or if this is just going to be a stationary point. Like I said, we're learning together. But if it's something that could be improved, the struggle is real today trying to hold that. Longer screwdriver would have made that part a little bit easier. But all I want to do is take a little bit of tension off, because these shoes do actually look like they sit underneath this set washer, or washer. So let's get rid of all of that, and I'll probably end up cleaning up some of these silver parts, because they're not in the nicest of shape. So there's that part. Washer is rusted to the seal, or to the brake shoes. Maybe. Oh, it might just be a slip-in. That's fine too. So now we have two springs here, pads with no shoes. That is our brake assembly. Very crusty, very beat up. It was not a washer, that was a fixed piece. That's the mounting plate for the shoes themselves. Like I said, brand new bearing on the inside of this. And of course, it's going to be bigger. We need a 5/8 now for the pivot arm. And then a way to keep that stationary. I'll try and use the side of this bench real quick here. Bring this down like so. The bench will hold the tab in place. Fancy acorn nut, star washer, brake tab, spacer, and this is our pivot. This is what we want to grease up. So I'm going to run some emery cloth over this. I'm not going to film that part because that's boring. So I'm going to hit this with some sandpaper real quick, or some emery cloth. Clean this up, re-grease this, then this will go back in here. I'll clean up the back side of this while I'm at it. Then we'll come back to the actual brake drum component and the springs. The brake back plate. So brand new bearing. What am I running here? It's a 3/4 conversion, so 6203 RS. If you have one of these Hallcraft mini spools, very heavy piece. This is all steel. It's chrome plated, but it is steel. It's not flimsy aluminum. So that's done. Now, before I go any further, what I'm going to do is take the pin. I didn't brake clean or spray down anything. I just scuffed most of the surface rust off of this. This is all internal. This is the pivot point. We are going to grease, not this part, but we are going to grease the shaft. A little bit of grease on here. Let's work this around here. Ideally, you don't really want that much of this on the threads. But this being the inside, there's a lip on the outer backing plate. And now, look at that. It actually spins freely by itself without any weird grinding noises. So I'm going to reassemble the outer part of that pivot first, just while it's fresh in my head. This is the back side, not as clean. If I need to take this apart at a later date and clean it up a little bit more, I'm just going to give this a quick little wipe down. I said I might coat some of these things, but I kind of like the crusty chopper chrome, especially on an older bike. If it's OG and crusty, that to me, if it's still kind of shiny, if it's super pitted like that Sissy bar was, it's worth cleaning up. This kind of stuff, to me, is cool. If you disagree, that's fine. But the cost to re-chrome or anything else, like, I'll just pay up on some stock-ish parts. Acorn nut, I'm not going to clean that one up right now. Little bit of time on the wire wheel with that. That will look just fine at a later date. Oh, I forgot the spacer. It's been apart for 3 minutes and I'm already forgetting parts. Let's just give this a quick little wipe, see what it looks like underneath. Oh yeah, perfectly runnable. This is not an abrasive or a heavy cutting rag of any sort. There's no polish. This is just a little bit of elbow grease. Here's the other spacer that we had. So this should clean up okay. The chrome's gone on this backside, but that's fine. So spacer sleeve. And then we'll put the brake arm back on. Acorn nut, hold everything in place. Just like that. So now we got a pivoting brake nut without a ton of slop or free play. Check this though. If you got a lot of side-to-side movement on this plate, like right now I do, but it's also really loose, you don't really want that. That's not ideal. Like I said, this isn't going to be a fully functional brake. If you wanted to redo it, you might need to drill that hole bigger, put a bushing in or something to get that a little bit tighter. I don't really care. This is a slightly better than decorative rebuild. Now, let's clean this up too. I know it's not that fun watching me wipe things down with a rag, but this is the real part of building a bike. If you want to buy all brand new catalog stuff, that's fine. If you want to use what you got and do it with a little bit more budget-friendly attitude, this is how that's done. Whole lot of elbow grease. Now, we have one through bolt here. Already forgetting how this went back together. This is going to be the mount for our cable. And this one... Okay, so here's our brake stay. It's fine. This is our cable mount, which won't be a final fixed product yet. We'll at least just lay this out. This one's just kind of dangling. This is going to need some readjustment later on. So actually, that doesn't even matter yet. Let's take that back off. We'll fix that later. Important part, brakes. Brakes. 2 springs on the inside of this. This one's actually way more stretched than I want it to be, but we're going to run with it. And then the other 2 go into this washer. So what I'm going to do is lift that up, separate it from this spacer block. This needs to be cleaned up. This groove is where the pads are going to ride. This isn't good. And our fancy drum brake kit comes with new springs. Brake pad, spring. Wow, these springs are way different. I don't know if that's going to work. Brake pad. So this is that point where I am going to compare. These look kind of close, but also very different. Knocking this up on the hub over here. Yeah, we're going to try it. Not overly confident at this juncture that this is going to work proper at all. Chinese parts for sure. It's not going to work. Look at the spacer plate. Brake pad, brake material on the pivot pin. Look at how thick this is versus that rides in this groove. Another lost cause. We are 0 for like 900 today. This ain't gonna work. More Chinese, Taiwan, Ted crap. Choppers are so fun, they said. Build a chopper. Use all these crusty old parts. Make everything work. It's a great time, they said. Lies. This is the second set of brake shoes that I bought for this setup. Super unfortunate. Now I gotta figure out what I actually need for this. And if I can't get it through V-Twin, now I gotta do a bunch of research. I do have a bunch of small displacement bikes at the shop, so maybe I can find something that'll work. I don't know. The misery is real. Also means that's the end of this video, because these are all the problems that happen. I don't care. You guys can witness with me. I don't know if it's a parts ordering issue, if I'm that stupid. I looked at a couple pictures. This said it fits the mini drum that they sell on their site. Maybe they reworked that tab and the plate for the hub. If that's the case, then maybe it is my fault and I didn't read the details enough. I don't really know. But when you're starting to do some of this old stuff, diameter-wise, size-wise, that's pretty much there. Measurement-wise, pretty much there. Mounting side, totally different. That's an aluminum plate. I don't know if I feel comfortable grinding this down to make it work. I think it will work, and we'll see what happens as I research this a little bit further. If not, maybe I'll just grind this off. Like I said, if this was a functional working brake, do not do that. This is not one of those. This is kind of a decorative, but I wanted everything to work. So, end of this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't like, dislike, that's fine too. I don't really care. But this is what happens when you try and mix together a bunch of crappy, old swap meet parts. It's not always the best. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one. Well, just a quick little redo. Not because... Well, mainly because I don't have the right proper parts. But let me take this apart again. I don't want to lose any of this stuff. So, this is going to go back together. So here's that spacer plate that I said needs to be cleaned up. This is going to go right back on here. Like so. Bolt's going to go through. This goes through the backing plate. Then it holds on to your little nub that is also your clutch cable, or brake cable. So I'm just going to hand thread this down. It's not going to be a final reassembly. Pivot arm, you want to follow the clutch cable pattern. So wherever the clutch cable is going to engage, essentially you would hold this right here, lock this nut down. There's your hole. Clutch cable or brake cable will go through here and pull on this arm. When you pull the lever, it pulls on the cable. This gets pulled forward. Now, on the actual brake itself, hopefully you guys paid attention when I took this apart, but you got your slotted side that goes into this spacer. And then we have our brake side over here. So what I like to do is hook the springs up first. Just over my shoulder, so hopefully this actually works. Then compress the shoes over them. Like that. Bring this up. Bring this up. And if this had brand new pads on it, we'd be good to go, and this would drop right back in. Like so. We don't have pads, so don't know how long that's going to take, nor do I have the patience for that. Who knows? Wheel is sitting this way. The axle fell out through the bottom. So I'm going to put the axle back in now. This way. Take your tools off the wheel before you lift it up. Drive that back through. Now that is done. Axle plate and parts are back together. I will do the same thing on the other side because I need to keep all of this arranged. And it will make my life way easier when it comes to reassemble all of this. So this is how the wheel is going to sit. This is the way it needs to be. The brake tab for this fender mount, which I'm going to have to extend and make a new one anyway, is going to go on the right side of the bike when you are sitting on it. Then I'll grab the axle nuts and things that I have over here. The forks I just set off to the side. So just throwing all of this back together for a rough mock-up. Now, axle's turned around. We'll deal with that on reassembly. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.